You're listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your hosts, Gary Kelley and Brad Avergon.
Hi, welcome back to the second half of the show. I'm here with Brad Avergon.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
I'm good. So, Brad, we've been working with a client that has been looking at different homes in the Framingham area. And, you know, you're from Framingham, you're familiar with Framingham. And I think that there are some things that we've been seeing in the marketplace that it might make sense to share with some of our listeners. And that's around the velocity of what's going on in the marketplace. And at the, I'm going to say I want to say the lower end, and that, you know, a $500,000 house is not a lower end house. You know, we're going into homes that, you know, have had water damage and were on the market for a while and then off the market, and then they're popping back on now because it's a feeding frenzy in the marketplace, but the homes may not necessarily be pristine condition, move-in ready, whatever you want to say. So Brad, what are your thoughts as we've worked together on with that client on some of the homes that we're looking at?
Well, so it's interesting, Gary. I think that you know, the environment, you described it perfectly, which is it's a bit of a feeding frenzy, and so that creates this energy out there that it's almost a desperation, right? You walk through even a mediocre property sometimes, and there's a line out the door of people to get in. And as a potential buyer, they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I got to grab this thing because I need to have it. If all these people are there, I need to have it." And sometimes I think logic and common sense can kind of escape because there's almost a sense of desperation. And I think that that's not a good place to be. I think and you know, I've watched you counsel clients and say, listen, this is not the only home. It may feel like the only home today. It may feel like there's a lot, but there's other homes out there. And if this is not a good fit, let's move on, because not every home is a good fit. And there's a lot, especially with first-time home buyers, there's a lot of things when you walk into a home, the one you described, where there's, you know, mold damage or water damage or different things like that. Those are not inexpensive fixes. Those are expensive fixes if you can fix them. And so I think that that wisdom that comes with the age, Gary, that you bring, I think that's really, really important. And I think that I try to be the same way and say, look, let's not get overly excited and let's not overly panic. This is a process. This is a journey. And let's look at it that way, as opposed to let's go grab first or second house we can find.
One of the things I see happening with so many first-time buyers is they finally find that house that they want to put the offer in on, and they're excited. And we write up the offer, and sometimes they'll write a letter, and, you know, we've got all these contingencies. Do you want to, you know, change any of the contingencies, etc.? They get all excited and they make the offer. And that night when they make an offer, they typically don't get any sleep that night because they're all excited and they want to know if they got the offer. And if they get the offer, then what's next? And when do we do the home inspection? And then they find out that they didn't get the offer. Now, my colleague Sue, inevitably when someone doesn't get an offer, she's right back and said, yeah, we're going to start to look again. We'll update the MLS search. We'll do this. And what I'll say to Sue is, hold on a second. They need to mourn the loss of this house, even if it's 2 days, 3 days, because they're disappointed. And once they get through that, then they go back out and they start to look again. And maybe they'll make an offer on something. Maybe they won't, but they'll start to get this, they'll get sucked into the moment. And when they're sucked into the moment, first of all, every time they don't get the house, they get so despondent. And it's one of these things where years ago, a guy that I was in real estate with said to me, Gary, you can't fall in love with the brick. This is a decision that's either going to make sense or it's not. And as you point out, if not this house, there'll be another one. But first-time buyers, they need to understand we've got to look at it. I had someone years ago say to me, we're going to get this house. I don't care what we pay. Well, the truth is you do care what you pay because the bank's going to make sure that it appraises unless you're paying cash. The bank wants to make sure that you haven't overspent on the house and that they're going to be protected if, God forbid, the house goes back to them. So those are the types of things where trying to keep a first-time buyer's emotions in check, keeping them positive, upbeat in the game. Because one of the things that happens is they go at this for a couple of months, few months, and then they say, yeah, I'm just going to sign another lease. I'm going to stay here for another year. Do you see that, Brad?
And it's interesting, in order for them to kind of get excited about the house, they kind of have to open their hearts a little bit, like dating, right? You're going to open your heart a little bit and see if and see if you can picture yourself in this house, and you see yourself, having happy memories, raising a family, whatever the case may be. And when they do that, and then they don't get the house, they're crushed, right? All those memories, all those visions that I had, they're gone. And so they have to mourn that loss. And I think your advice is very, very sound, which is, see if the house feels right, but don't necessarily go down that painting that clear picture until you land the house, because there's a lot of science that comes to this. There's a lot of, can you get the house? Is the house a good fit? Is there issues with the house? And being able to kind of watch that a little bit, picture yourself in the house and see if it's a good fit, but being able to watch those emotions and keep those in check, I think it's really, really important. And unfortunately, sometimes first-time home buyers learn that the hard way. They go down that, they get a couple of sets of disappointment. And then, as you said, after a few times of losing homes, sometimes they get frustrated and said, oh, I'm just going to go sign another lease and let's just put it on hold. Versus if they go into the idea that this is a journey, you're not necessarily going to get this first house, second house, third house, fourth house, or even beyond that. This is about learning what kind of homes are out there, what's a good value, what's not a good value, and working through it so you get the right house. Would you agree?
No, I think that that's important. I really do, because it's, they get into the excitement of the process. They get sucked into it, and it becomes, we've got to win. And that's fine. You want to win only if it makes sense. People often say to me, how will I know that this is the right house? And the truth is, I don't know. I can look at the numbers. I can look at the neighborhood stats and what, population and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, what I say to people is you're going to walk into a house and you're going to feel it. If it's a first-time buyer, if it's a couple, they'll stare at each other and they'll say, this is it. I had one guy who bought a house, and he was actually looking at the house. I was doing an open house, and I said to him, why don't you just sit here for a while? And he sat there for probably 10 minutes. And he got up and he said, this is the house. It feels like me. So to me, it's a visceral feeling. Yeah, the numbers have to work. The bank has to approve. All the things that go into that. That's all true. But it's more of a feeling than a spreadsheet somewhere. It's not, if you're buying a multifamily property, an investment property, then the numbers need to work. But if you're buying your home, it's got to be home. You have to like the way it feels.
It is an emotional experience for whether it's first-time home buyers or even trade-up buyers, or even people selling their homes. It is an emotional experience. But sometimes if you surround yourself with people that can be sensitive to the fact that it's an emotional experience, but yet keep you grounded with logic and facts and different things like that, it can help. Sometimes I don't know, Gary, if you've seen this before, but you get a buyer that actually wins the bid, right? They get the property, put it under agreement, and then after the fact, they get a little bit of buyer's remorse that next day, like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And that's where I think coming in and saying, okay, well, let's talk about what did you do? Well, you found a house that's within your price range, and this is what the monthly payments are going to be. How would that compare to what you're paying for? And you kind of re-look at that and say, well, this is what the comparables are there. You've got a good value on the property. Are you comfortable? Does this feel right? And having that, I think, outside, like a board of advisors, those neutral board of advisors, I think helps. Would you agree?
I do agree. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace is it's such a feeding frenzy. People are putting in offers on houses sight unseen. And I don't like that. I don't like when someone offers on a house that has never stepped foot in it and they're just like, we want to beat this. Or I've had separate from COVID, when some people bought remotely, that's a completely different situation. But I've had instances where the real estate agent walks through the door, hands me an offer, and the people haven't even seen the house. If they win that, there's a good likelihood that they're going to have second thoughts and back away from the deal. And that's not good for the seller. It's not good for anyone.
There was a philosophy not too long ago where, people were going in. It was a bit of a bidding war, similar to in fashion what it is right now, and things were getting bid up, and people would throw the highest bid in they could, and then they would try to go back and renegotiate it based on a home inspection with some like ludicrous expectations, like, okay, I want you to drop $20,000-$30,000 off the price of the house because it's got wallpaper I don't care for, crazy things like that. So I think you're right. I think it is a visceral experience that they've got to kind of walk through and say, yeah, this is what's feels right. This house feels right. I think it's going to be a good fit for it.
So, Brad, I want to bring the show to a close. I'm glad that we did, hours of show prep. I mean, this was obviously top of mind and thrown at you, but you're really good at thinking on your feet. I think you did great. If someone wanted to reach you again, how do they reach you?
Gary, the best way to reach me is by cell phone. It's area code 978-375-5531, and my email is bavergon, BAVERGON @envisionbank.com. And Gary, how would they reach you?
I'm at Gary at movewithgary.com and 508-733-6005. I want to thank Harry. I want to thank Keith. I want to thank Ted A, who's making all the magic happen behind the glass. Even though we're recording this as a Zoom session and Ted's going to be frustrated with the sound, as I think Keith's going to be.
I'm sorry, Ted.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Gary.
See you in a month.
You've been listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.